Well, I've been working away on this 65 Mustang and I'm getting a lot done, but one of the things I need to address still is the drip rail. Now unfortunately, this drip rail on the passenger side is really bad. Let me just show you all the ugly spots. This is never good. Never a good sign. Have that all the way through. So gonna have to do something with this. Unfortunately, they don't make these for the coupes. They make them for the fastbacks. Now I do have a drip rail set up that I bought, a pair of drip rails for a I think a 67 or 68 fastback, and they're similar, but the big difference I see is this curve. It actually has a curve in it right here, and on the 65 and 6, I don't know if you can see it from here, they're flat. There's really no curve at all. So I was going to try to cut this and chop it up and make it do what I want it to do, or what I want it to do, but it's not going to happen. There's just too many variables that I can't control. So I'm on the hunt right now. I've got some friends who've got cars sitting around, or know other people who have cars sitting around. So I will find a drip rail from a donor car. The driver's side, it's good. Had a little bit of rust in it, but it's nothing rusted through. So I've cleaned it all up and I've treated it with some rust seal, and I'll reseal it with a seam sealer, and this side will be good to go. But that passenger side, I'm definitely going to have to do more with it, and it's just going to be a challenge to find a proper donor, but I'll find one. It's out there somewhere. Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I needed that rain gutter for the passenger side, and of course they don't make them for the coupe, so I picked up this. This was wrecked about 30 years ago, and believe it or not, I bought it from Dan Elliott, Bill Elliott's brother. I went up to their complex where they build engines and transmissions and everything for the race teams, and picked up this gem. As you can see, the only straight part on this whole car is the rain gutter. So that's all I'm going to be able to salvage off of that as far as metal, but that's okay. It does have some glass in it, and that's about it. Everything else is bent. Every single piece on this car, all the way down to the cross member underneath the engine. And I asked him, he said they had this car, his dad had bought it about 30 years ago, and they've just held on to it and pieced off what they could. Now it is a V8 car, so it has 5-lug wheels, but otherwise there's just nothing worth messing with on this car. I just couldn't believe it. But they would not sell just the rain gutter. But if you notice, the rain gutter is straight. So I'll salvage that piece and make do. Stay tuned. Okay, so I gave you an overview of what was left of this Mustang, and obviously it's a parts car and a junker. So I went ahead and took the door off, got it out of the way. I removed the existing trim that was on the drip rail, and I also removed the stainless strip that goes up inside that holds the door seal. And it's surprisingly in good shape. There's a little bit of rust down here in this corner, but I did this, I bared the metal just to find the spot welds. But the rest of it is good and solid. Now the challenge is, and this also explains why they don't make these, is the drip rail starts out up here and it goes under the roof and comes up here. So basically this piece right here, this edge, is the drip, or the edge of the drip rail. So from looking at this, when the car is built, the drip rails are put on first, and then the roof is set on top, and then it's pinch welded, you know, at the overlap. So what I'm going to do is, I've already cut off obviously the roof because this is all junk, and I can't cut this off, mainly because I can't cut it off of the other car. I'm not going to butcher that car apart and cut the roof up just to get this back in. So what I'm going to have to do is cut it down here. I say down here, I'm going to cut it back in this corner, and by doing that I'll be left with the main drip rail, and I can separate the roof piece out of this gutter, what's left of it right here, separate that out, and I can go back and drill holes through this existing piece and weld it onto the new car, and a little blending, a little seam sealer, and it'll be good to go. But this explains why they don't make these and sell them. There's no way people could put these in without putting a whole new roof on the car. Success. Took a little more work than I wanted it to, because there was a bunch of spot welds on that A-pillar. But we can see that even though it's got a little surface rust, it's in good shape. And next step will be getting the rest of this inner, or the roof piece off, cleaning it up some more, treating it, and prepping it for going back on the car. But I'm pretty happy, you know. I know it took a lot of effort just to find a car and then cut it all apart, but they don't make these, and you know, I think if they just made a piece like this and it was available, people would use it. I don't know why they don't. So I'll just drive on and try to get this cleaned up and work on getting it back on. So here's the plan on this drip rail. And I showed you the previous video segment was where the original roof was spot welded to the drip rail, and there were probably 50 or 60 welds in that thing, and I'm not going to need to duplicate that, because the other half, or the remnant of the original drip rail, is still there, still holding on to the roof. All I'm going to do is sandwich that piece up there in between this new drip rail, or this replacement drip rail. And I drilled holes probably every, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 inches, and I also treated it with weld through primer, top and bottom. And of course, once this is welded in, I'll have to seam seal it, make it tight again. But you know, this is the challenge whenever you have a car that's got some bad rust in a certain area and they don't make these pieces. You got to find a donor car, and I was lucky enough to find a donor car. So I'll drive on, I'll get this up in place and get it done. And there it is. Now, it took a bit more effort than I had hoped it would. I really got a couple days into this thing, but it's welded back in. It's nice and straight. It's not going anywhere. It fits the original contour. We've got all the welds. Still have the existing holes for the stainless piece that holds the door seal. It's been welded up against the edge there. And the next step will be to put a little bit of sealer in that seam, and it'll be back to rock solid again. Pretty happy with it. Unfortunately, you have to get one from a donor car to make it work, but I think it turned out pretty good. Now to drive on and get the rest of these welds ground down, get them prepped, and try to get this car together.